The girl was horrified to see 3 armed men charging straight toward them. Clearly, they were heading for her black uncle's home. At that moment, the man working outside also noticed the uninvited visitors arriving at his house. They were all holding weapons, their eyes filled with murderous hostility. In an era when slavery had not yet been abolished, black people were not even allowed to have a place of their own to stand. Just as the man prepared to fight back, the invader pulled the trigger without hesitation. No conversation, no warning. All of it happened because of the color of his skin. But the nightmare was not over. His wife, who came after hearing the commotion, was also dragged out of the house by the invaders. She was a native woman, but in the eyes of the invaders, she had been cruelly branded as savage. Seeing her husband lying dead under the enemy's gun, grief came crashing over the woman like a tide, and the young girl witnessed all of it with her own eyes. At this point, the invaders still had no intention of stopping. They wrapped a rope around a tree trunk, then tied the woman's hands from behind. This was a common punishment at the time, hanging a person alive until they died, and in the final moments of her life, the woman struggled to hum a native song. The song seemed to accuse the attackers of the crimes they had committed. As the 2 men pulled hard, the woman's feet instantly left the ground, and her body trembled violently as she struggled. But right then, the husband lying on the ground seemed not to be dead after all. Yet under the men's brutal pulling, his wife soon lost her life. Just as the 3 men finished everything and prepared to leave the place, the black man stubbornly stood back up. Using the element of surprise, he quickly took down all 3 men, but his gentle and loving wife had left him forever. This is the film adapted from Janice Woods Wendell's historical novel True Women. From the turbulent Texas Revolution to the early women's suffrage movement, it tells a story of endurance, love, and the unbreakable determination of women. The story takes place in the mid-19th century, Georgia, who has native ancestry, and young Mia are the closest of friends. While the 2 girls are playing by the lake, a man rides a fierce horse straight toward Georgia's estate. The girl senses that something has happened, so she quickly runs back home. But then a heartbreaking piece of news comes from Georgia's mother.
Your papa was on his way here to take you home, Feemy, but his heart gave out and he died.
A few years earlier, Mia's mother had already passed away. This time, her father has left her too. For such a young girl, the blow is far too heavy to bear. That night, the couple discusses letting the poor child stay in their home, but the husband believes Mia still has an older sister, and that sister obviously will not agree. Sure enough, one morning a few days later, a man comes to the estate to pick Mia up. He is the girl's brother-in-law, and he wants to invite Mia to Texas to live with them, but the girl cannot bear to leave her best friend, and even believes Georgia is the only thing she still has in her life. She does not want to leave this place, but after her brother-in-law's patient persuasion and his honest, warm attitude, Mia finally agrees. As they part, Georgia takes out her most precious little pouch as a symbol of their friendship. Perhaps the sincerity of childhood is the purest and most innocent thing of all, something worth remembering forever. Just like that, Mia and her brother-in-law set off on the journey to Texas. After several days on the road, they finally arrive at their destination. At that moment, a woman is chopping wood in the yard. The sound of horse hooves instantly catches her attention. Seeing her husband return safely, she cannot help rushing forward to embrace him, and the younger sister she has not seen in 3 years looks a little nervous. After all, ever since her sister got married, the 2 of them have never seen each other again. Even if they feel unfamiliar now, blood ties cannot be broken. Sarah introduces her younger sister to the family, including a black household servant who helps care for the children, and Mia feels a warmth she has not felt in a very long time. Everything seems to have returned to the calm of home, but a massive crisis is quietly closing in. Sometime later, the girl lies among the flowers, thinking about writing a letter to her best friend, but a group of guerrilla soldiers is charging straight toward this place. Luckily, Mia hides in time, or she would have become a victim beneath the cavalry's hooves. The girl realizes something is wrong, so she quickly runs back home. At that moment, the people of the town have gathered together to listen to the captain's battle orders. It turns out that war has broken out. Mexican soldiers are launching a massive attack on Texas with shocking speed. Everywhere they go, bodies are left across the ground. The scene's too tragic to look at. To win the Texas War of Independence, the general orders every able man to become a soldier. The women, meanwhile, must move to a safer place. Hearing this news, Sarah immediately takes a map out of the house. After careful analysis, she finds that if they travel 200 miles north, about a 10-day journey, they will reach Louisiana. That place is not the target of the enemy's attack. But just then, a soldier brings even worse news. The invaders are less than half a day away from the town, so the captain immediately orders all children and women to evacuate at once. At the same time, he orders Sarah to lead the march and defend against attacks from bandits and deserters. Young Mia knows nothing about the danger that is coming, so Sarah sets out with a long line of people behind her. This is an extremely difficult mission. At the same time, she is already 6 months pregnant. At night, they choose an open area to set up camp, and Sarah orders the guards to change every 4 hours to prevent bandits from launching a surprise attack. But as the storm arrives, this quiet night is destined to be anything but ordinary. Sure enough, a gang of more than a dozen men emerges from the woods. This was not rare at the time, because Texas had been at war for years. Many people had gone to extremes just to survive. At that moment, Sarah is inside the tent loading bullets, while handing the household servant a gun and asking him to protect the young children. After arranging everything, the woman walks out of the tent and joins the fight. Thanks to the women's relentless effort, the bandits are finally driven away, but it seems one stubborn man has not left. Facing the black servant with a gun pointed at him, the man knocks him out with a single punch. Then the man snatches the child from Mia's arms, trying to use the baby to force the girl to reveal where her family's gold is hidden. At the critical moment, Sarah shoots the stubborn man from behind. Seeing that the child has not been hurt, Sarah's firm and courageous gaze continues to encourage young Mia. But this turbulent night is still not over. Suddenly, a wounded soldier arrives among the crowd, gasping for breath. The man tells everyone that their troops were ambushed by the enemy, with more than 400 people killed or wounded. The rest are also in terrible danger. After hearing this news, some women can no longer bear it and collapse straight to the ground. The others sink into overwhelming grief as well. Some impulsive women even want to return to the battlefield and bury their husbands with their own hands. But as the leader, Sarah will absolutely not allow anyone to leave the group on their own. In the blink of an eye, the next day arrives, and the women and children continue heading north. But the real hardship has only just begun. The fleeing women unexpectedly discover that a wide river is blocking their path. But time means life. Sarah has no time to think too much, so she grabs an axe from the wagon, walks straight to a large tree, and starts chopping with all her strength. Even though she is already 6 months pregnant, she completely ignores the kind reminders from the people under her command. The woman keeps chopping with everything she has. Late into the night, the group of women is still working non-stop. But at this point, Sarah begins to feel deeply unwell, clearly shaken by the strain of her pregnancy. To make matters worse, her baby, only 2 weeks old, had fallen ill a few days earlier. No matter how carefully Mia looks after the child, the baby's life can hardly be extended. And in the end, the overworked Sarah also fails to keep the child in her womb. Perhaps this is a kind of release, because in the wild Western world, even ordinary healthy people struggle to survive, let alone women who are enduring such a brutal escape. When an older woman comes to Mia's tent and tells her the terrible news, everyone breaks down in grief, and the baby in the girl's arms has also stopped breathing. This is an extremely cruel experience. On this day, Mia's sister loses the two people she loves most. For a woman, what kind of unforgettable blow must that be? But there are no tears in her eyes, and no surrender to life. Even when she hides by the river alone in a daze, she does not want anyone to see her fragile side. 2 days later, young Mia is still grieving over what happened to her sister. But now, dry your tears, because they are about to challenge this river. Then a tall, strong woman rides a fierce horse, pulling a rope, and must cross the river first. Only then can they secure the rope on the other side, build a raft, and let the wagons pass. But reality often goes far beyond expectations. Before long, the horse is trapped deep in the water, and the woman is almost submerged. The companions behind her slowly release the rope while shouting encouragement. The situation is extremely dangerous, but whether it is the woman or the horse, neither gives in to fear, and both keep pushing forward. Perhaps this is the spirit of humanity, always exploring and fighting stubbornly to survive. But as she reaches the middle of the river, the woman's entire body is swallowed by the water. Everyone's heart jumps into their throat. Looking at the calm surface without the slightest ripple, the companion's tension turns into fear. And at this critical moment, a miracle appears. Brave people are always captivating, especially women with such a stubborn will to survive. Now that the rope has been secured, the next step is to build the wooden raft and begin crossing the river. At night, the people sit safely on the higher ground, watching their homeland being torn apart by war. And at this moment, what they worry about most is whether the men who hold their families together can return alive. The next morning, the distant cannon fire stops. It is the quietest sound Mia has ever heard. Every woman waits silently for her husband. They are afraid their husbands will not appear, because that would mean they died on the battlefield. As the guerrilla soldiers begin arriving one after another, the women grow even more nervous. Some burst into laughter, some shed bitter tears, and some sink into painful silence. At this moment, Sarah is even more worried and afraid, because during this journey of escape, she has already lost far too much. But then, the man she has been waiting for finally appears. Sarah cannot help letting out a laugh. The heart that has been hanging in fear finally settles back down. It is a release beyond words, and also the spiritual support that lets her keep living. Just like that, they return once again to Bartlett's little wooden cabin, feeling the joy of reunion after a long separation, and young Mia is always writing her experiences in her notebook. She hopes that one day, she can share them with her best friend Georgia, but she has no idea that her best friend is also going through cruel changes. Because Georgia's mother has Native ancestry, her aunt was persecuted by local attackers and tragically lost her life, while her black uncle was badly wounded. Prejudice based on skin color grows more and more severe. One night, Georgia's family estate is also set on fire. At the same time, the attackers leave heartbreaking discriminatory words on the wall. Those words are like a merciless knife, cutting deep into the girl's heart. The next morning, when her mother comes to find her daughter, she discovers that Georgia has cut off her long hair and painted her face white. Clearly, her daughter has been affected by outside prejudice and has begun rejecting the native features in herself. But the woman does not get angry at her for this. She simply tells Georgia a brief history of their family. She tells her how the brave Comanche people struggled to survive on this American land, and how they resisted the oppression of outside invaders. Just like that, time flies, and 8 years pass in the blink of an eye. Georgia is no longer the girl troubled by the color of her skin, and her best friend has also become a beautiful young woman. The black maid unexpectedly discovers a group of native people approaching aggressively. They have dolls shaped like girls tied to their weapons, clearly showing they have not come with good intentions, so the maid immediately goes inside to alert her mistress. Sensing that something terrible is about to happen, Sarah urgently comes to the window to look outside. She sees that there are 8 of them. If they face them head-on, it will be very hard to win. It turns out that over the years, many women in the tribe have died from smallpox. To continue their bloodlines, the group can only rely on women from other groups to bear children. Hearing this, even the black maid becomes frightened. The situation is extremely urgent, so Sarah decisively takes rifles from the cabinet and hands one to each person, just in case the worst happens. Then she picks up a gun herself and walks outside, facing the native people's threatening arrogance. The woman shows no fear. She points the gun at one man's head and says that as long as they do not harm her family, they can take everything in the house. Her gaze is so tough and commanding that the other side is left speechless. After making her determination clear, the woman turns around and walks straight back into the house. Even her sister and the maid by the window are terrified for her. They are afraid these men, whom people call savages, will suddenly attack. But unexpectedly, the other side stops moving, until one morning 2 days later, a house outside town is burned down. The homeowner's legs and arms have been cut off, and only his daughter's body is nowhere to be found. Clearly, the incident was done by native attackers. After that, Bartlett quickly returns home and tells his wife the tragic news, and the missing girl is Mia's friend. Such violence has made the family feel a crisis unlike anything before, so Bartlett prepares to find the Texas guerrilla cavalry and resist the native raids. He tells his wife to leave this dangerous place for the time being, but stubborn Sarah refuses to leave. She wants to protect her homeland with action, just as she once did during the Texas War of Independence. Just like that, the man says a brief goodbye to his loved ones. Now, everything is in their own hands, but things often move in the worst possible direction. The next morning, even though Sarah has ordered everyone not to leave the room, the black maid suddenly needs to use the bathroom at the worst possible time, since the mistress is still asleep. She ignores Mia's warning and runs outside without hesitation, but when Sarah wakes up, she learns from her sister that the black maid has already left the room. Just as the woman opens the door to look for her, the maid has already been captured by the native people. The situation spirals completely out of control. The maid is cruelly tied up and dragged along until they reach a large tree. They intend to hang this maid alive with a rope. Immediately after that, one man pulls out a dagger. After looking the woman over, he presses the knife straight against her chest. Seeing that Sarah's loyal servant is about to face disaster, Sarah cannot just stand by and watch her die, so she silently picks up the baby in swaddling clothes. After a fierce struggle in her heart, She comes to her younger sister. She tells Mia that if she is about to meet a terrible fate, Mia must put aside mercy and shoot at the man outside without hesitation. Then she must leave one bullet to end her child's life. After saying this, Sarah walks outside without taking any gun. Seeing that both her sister and the maid are about to be in danger, Mia prepares to shoot with a determined look in her eyes. But right then, the man who visited last time arrives at this place. Without hesitation, he unties Sarah's ropes and pulls the arrow from her leg. Then he uses a unique native herbal medicine and applies it to the wound on her leg. Perhaps not everyone is cold and ruthless, or perhaps this white woman's fearless courage truly moves him. After that, Sarah passes out from the severity of her injury, and Mia, still on high alert, lowers her weapon when she sees the native people are about to leave. They respect brave people, especially women who refuse to surrender in the face of hardship. The man even tosses Mia a gift as a symbol of peace between the two sides. The family is finally safe. The two sisters hold each other and cry, feeling the joy of having survived. But a brutal civil war is about to break out. Georgia clearly does not realize that two hunting dogs are charging straight toward her, knocking the delicate young woman to the ground in an instant. And just as she looks up, a dignified man walks over. His elegant manners make the young girl, just awakening to love, fall completely for him. It turns out the man is the town doctor. Then he gently rubs the girl's ankle, and all the unbearable pain turns into a shy, affectionate smile. But this is not the end. The gentlemanly doctor actually picks Georgia up in his arms. Their relationship gradually begins to heat up. Perhaps this is what people call love at first sight. And with the doctor's humorous and charming words, the girl's sensual lips can no longer stay closed like a proper lady's. Things develop surprisingly fast. At a ball a few days later, both of them express their love for each other. The girl does not mind that the man is much older than she is, and the doctor does not carry the rigid prejudice that would judge Georgia for having native ancestry. Just like that, with her parents' silent approval, Georgia gets married, but she must follow her husband to work in Texas, leaving the home where she grew up sheltered and loved. She has no idea what that unseen world will be like, and Texas, newly baptized by the War of Independence, is still trapped in an unstable and turbulent environment, because local tribal forces once held several white women captive. Negotiations with the government finally lead to some of the victims being sent back. Mia's friend Maddie is among them. The girl is incredibly excited to see her friend again, but when she sees Maddie's burned face, Mia is so frightened she cannot even look directly at her. She never could have imagined that the once young and beautiful girl had been tortured by her captors into such a worn and broken state. Meanwhile, local officials discover that the tribal side has not returned all the women they were holding, so the tension between the two sides rises again, and conflict feels ready to explode at any second. Some armed men lose control of their emotions and even open fire on the chief who has come to negotiate. Although Sarah's husband, who has been trying to bring the two sides toward peace, desperately tries to stop them from creating more violence, several chiefs still fall under the gunfire. Afterward, Bartlett finds the local commander. Because he also has tribal ancestry, he hopes to act as a mediator and calm the escalating conflict between both sides. The next day, while talking with his wife, the man tells Sarah some good news. The governor has given him a new position. As a negotiator, he must go to the tribe and discuss every matter related to peaceful coexistence. But while his wife is happy, a sudden accident is about to sweep through this family. As evening approaches, Bartlett still has not returned. His wife becomes worried for reasons she cannot explain, so at her sister's suggestion, the two decide to head toward the native tribe to look for him. But by the river, they discover her husband's horse. On the horse's front leg, there is even a mark from a venomous snakebite. Then, after the woman looks around, something terrible happens. Her husband has fallen onto a rock and lost his life forever. Sarah never could have imagined that the man who had survived so many battles would leave her in this way. But who can ever truly explain the randomness of fate? So everyone buries Bartlett with the honor of a guerrilla cavalryman, and the woman who has always seemed so strong on the outside can no longer hold back the tears in her eyes. After everything that has happened, Sarah decides to send her young sister to school. She hopes Mia can gain more knowledge and become someone useful to society in the future. As for Mia, she desperately wishes she could stay by her sister's side so Sarah would no longer be so lonely. Although Sarah is reluctant to part with her sister, in this ordinary home, she can no longer give Mia more help. so Mia goes to the city to study. At the same time, Georgia has also arrived in Texas. Although the two women have not seen each other for more than 10 years, that familiar face still remains in Georgia's memory. Just like that, the husband brings his wife and household servants to a desolate, empty piece of land. This is the land the doctor has bought. He wants to build a new home here and create a farm of his own. But suddenly, a man on horseback appears in the distance. Anxiously, he tells the doctor that cholera is spreading in the area, and many people are suffering under the epidemic. He wants to ask the doctor to come and help. Although the doctor has only just arrived and has not yet settled down, as a physician, he cannot simply stand by. That night, a piercing cry catches Georgia's attention. She immediately rushes to the rooms where the enslaved people live. It turns out that a black girl is giving birth, but because she has also been infected with the disease, she dies during childbirth. Georgia witnesses everything with a broken heart. She becomes afraid, and the thought of leaving even begins to grow in her mind. So the next day, when she sees the doctor return after working all night, she cannot help telling her husband that she wants to leave immediately, but the man has already made up his mind to live here. Facing such a determined husband, the woman does not want to die young, and she does not want to have children of her own. Hearing his wife speak so selfishly, the doctor becomes completely furious.
Georgia! Are you really so selfish? Do you know how many children I saw die in these last 2 weeks?
That night, the woman hangs up a portrait of her ancestors, praying that they will bless her family with safety, and sincerely apologizes to her husband. She tells her husband that she is willing to bear his children. However, an even greater crisis is about to arrive. The woman swimming in the water clearly does not realize that a male corpse is about to surface beside her. The sight instantly terrifies the beautiful Georgia. After she returns home, her husband, as a doctor, warns her that because of the cholera outbreak, the entire river may already be contaminated. Georgia is very afraid, because she is already pregnant, and she does not want to endure such a huge risk in this place. But her husband has just bought 4,000 acres of land and plans to grow cotton. Besides, he is a doctor, and no matter what happens, he will not let his wife become infected. That night, the woman goes to the place where the enslaved people live. Almost everyone here is forced to labor in this household as an enslaved person. Georgia finds the foreman working on cotton seeds and hopes he can take charge of the entire planting effort. For the foreman, growing cotton is his specialty, and there will be no problem at all. Besides, Mrs. Georgia is the best mistress he has ever met. She is not like the other people on the estate, who treat enslaved people as tools to be used however they please. He thanks her for taking them in, and thanks her for giving them a safe place to settle. In the blink of an eye, half a year passes, and Georgia and her husband welcome their first child. And the maid serving nearby happens to go into labor on the very same day. For a farm where life is hard, these few days are clearly good ones. Looking at his own child, the foreman becomes even more motivated to work. He is going to the city to sell the first batch of gin cotton and enjoy the comfort brought by peaceful life. It seems all of this makes Georgia forget the danger brought by cholera. But that very night, the woman's child falls ill. The child burns with such a high fever that she seems close to fainting, very likely infected with cholera. When her husband wakes from sleep in the middle of the night, Georgia is holding the baby and crying. Clearly, the young child has not escaped the call of death. The loss of her daughter leaves Georgia devastated, as if every feeling in her heart has evaporated in despair. The next day, after the doctor returns home, the servants burn everything the baby had used in order to prevent the epidemic from spreading wildly. But the man's wife is not inside the tent. At that moment, a black woman looks from a distance and discovers that her mistress has run into the cotton field. It turns out Georgia, unable to bear the loss of her child, is trying to release her unbearable grief through a form of self-punishment. A few days later, the black foreman returns to the farm with the convoy. His wife happily holds their child and comes to greet him. At this moment, Georgia also drags her weakened body outside. The man seems to realize something, because the lively mistress he once knew seems to have lost the light that used to shine on her face. Then the man excitedly carries a wooden barrel down from the wagon. Inside is all the money earned from selling the cotton. Everyone's hard work has finally brought real results. To thank everyone for their hard work, Georgia promises that after they move into the new home in a few days, every enslaved person will be given a house where they can settle. Against the cruel historical backdrop of that era, this promise becomes one of the rare hopes they can still see. Just like that, over the next few years, the doctor and his wife have many children one after another, from one or two at first, to a whole crowd of children later. Meanwhile, Georgia's childhood best friend also finds her own love. Their lives are surprisingly similar. Mia and her husband also have a large group of children, but just then, the Civil War breaks out. As people living in the South, every man within the required age range is ordered to go to the battlefield. Mia sends her husband off with a heart full of reluctance. On the other side, the doctor also says a painful goodbye to Georgia as he leaves to serve as a battlefield medic. After the men leave, the women begin volunteering at the arsenal. Here, Mia and Georgia meet again. The deep bond they had shared as children seems to have been washed into something unfamiliar by time. After all, they have not seen each other for more than 20 years, and in their very first meeting, the two begin arguing because their attitudes toward enslaved people are different. It is enough to make anyone sigh at how much time can change. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, another 4 years pass. While Mia is cleaning up the writing gear, a familiar voice comes from the distance. It turns out the woman's husband has returned. Although he looks somewhat worn down, the fact that he has come back in one piece is already a blessing, but Georgia's situation is completely different. Although her husband served as a field doctor, he still suffered severe trauma. Fortunately, he managed to hold on to his life, but in the following weeks, the victorious Northern Army arrives here. They force their way into Georgia's estate, treating this home that once held so much hope as a trophy they can trample however they please. Her husband is still badly wounded, her children are terrified, and Georgia can only step forward alone to protect this collapsing home. When an officer threatens Georgia with her daughter's safety and tries to violate her further, the fear in Georgia's heart instantly turns into rage. She fights back in the most decisive way. In this moment, she is no longer just a woman pushed around by history. She is the true guardian of this land. After the war ends, the old world has been completely torn apart. Mia and Georgia, once separated by different beliefs, finally come to understand each other again through suffering after suffering. They have seen with their own eyes how prejudice can kill, and they have personally lived through the helplessness of women in chaotic times. So when peace returns, they do not choose silence. Instead, they stand before the crowd and fight for the rights women deserve. Many years later, Georgia dies of illness. Mia and Sarah stand before her grave, looking back on her life, and finally understand that a true woman never lives by depending on someone else. They cry, they fear, and they are knocked down by fate again and again, but as long as there is still someone they want to protect, they will stand up again. What truly moves us about this film is not just the love and the war, but how the women swept up by the tide of history live through pain and become their own answer.